Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Terran Wanderer, watching the stars streak past through the viewing window. Her ship was nothing special to look at. It was a cargo vessel, built for moving supplies between human colonies. No fancy weapons, no military armor, just a reliable engine and enough cargo space to carry medical supplies and farming equipment to the outer worlds. "Captain, we're approaching the Kepler 442 system," said Navigator Yuki Tanaka from her station. "Should be a smooth run to New Harvest Colony." Chen nodded. This was routine work, the kind that kept human civilization running. The Terran Wanderer carried antibiotics for a flu outbreak, water purifiers for the growing settlements, and seeds for next year's crops. Boring but important cargo that would save lives and help people build better homes. "Any traffic in the system?" Chen asked. "Nothing on sensors yet," replied Chief Engineer Marcus Webb from the engineering station. "Looks quiet." The ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Immediately, alarms began blaring across the bridge. Tanaka's face went pale as she stared at her screens. "Captain, we have a massive contact. Unknown ship 10 times our size moving to intercept." Chen felt her stomach drop. The Terran Wanderer had no weapons and weak shields. They were defenseless against any military vessel. "Can we run?" "Not fast enough," Webb said, checking his systems. "They're already moving to cut us off." The unknown ship appeared on the main screen. It was huge, dark, and covered in what looked like crystal spikes. Strange symbols glowed along its hull. Chen had never seen anything like it. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the merchant vessel Terran Wanderer," she broadcast on all frequencies. "We are a peaceful cargo ship carrying medical supplies and farming equipment. Please identify yourselves." The response came in heavily accented English. "Unknown vessel, you will surrender immediately. I am Admiral Zextar of the Haelor Imperial Navy. Your ship and crew now belong to the Empire." Chen looked at her crew. 12 people, none of them soldiers. They were engineers, medics, cargo handlers, and navigators. Good people who had signed up to help colonies, not fight wars. "Admiral Zextar, we are not military," Chen replied. "We carry no weapons and pose no threat. We request safe passage to continue our humanitarian mission." "Humanitarian?" The alien voice sounded amused. "You weak creatures do not understand. The strong take what they need from the weak. That is the way of the galaxy. Prepare to be boarded." "Sir, please reconsider," Chen tried again. "We can offer trade agreements. Humans have advanced medical technology that could benefit your people." Silence. Zextar's voice turned angry. "Your species dares to negotiate with the Empire. You will learn your place as slaves or you will die." Chen looked around her bridge. Her crew looked scared but determined. Webb was quietly working at his station. Tanaka had her hand hovering over the communications panel. They all knew what was coming. "I'm sorry," Chen said softly to Admiral Zextar, "but we cannot surrender our crew to slavery." "Then you choose death." The alien ship opened fire. Energy beams lanced out, striking the Terran Wanderer's weak shields. The lights flickered as power systems overloaded. Another hit and the shields collapsed entirely. "Hull breach on Deck 3, someone shouted. "Engines are failing," Webb called out. But even as their ship was dying around them, Tanaka was working frantically at her station. "Emergency beacon is ready, Captain." "Send it," Chen ordered. The beacon launched just as the alien ship's weapons tore through the Terran Wanderer's hull. It was a standard distress signal, but embedded within its encrypted core was something else. Something that had been hidden in every human ship for 300 years, waiting for exactly this moment. The alien ship latched onto the crippled Terran Wanderer with docking clamps. Chen could hear the screech of metal as the hull was cut open. Her crew took defensive positions, but they had only basic tools against professional soldiers. The aliens that boarded were terrifying. They stood 8 feet tall, their bodies covered in natural crystal armor that gleamed under the ship's emergency lighting. Their faces were angular and sharp, with glowing eyes that showed no mercy. The fighting was brief and brutal. Chen watched her people fall one by one. The ship's doctor was cut down trying to help a wounded cargo handler. The cook died defending the galley with nothing but kitchen knives. These weren't soldiers, just ordinary people trying to survive. In minutes, it was over. Most of the crew was dead. Chen, Webb, and Tanaka were dragged through the corridors at gunpoint. The aliens spoke in their own language, harsh sounds that cut through the air like breaking glass. They were thrown into a holding cell aboard the alien ship. The walls were smooth crystal, impossible to break or climb. Guard creatures watched them with emotionless eyes. Why did they attack us? Tanaka whispered. We're just cargo haulers. Webb was checking a cut on his arm. I don't think they care what we are. They see weakness, they take advantage. Chen leaned against the crystal wall. The beacon was away. Someone would receive it eventually. But she wondered if it would matter. Earth was far away and the human colonies were scattered and lightly defended. What could they do against an empire that treated peaceful contact as an excuse for slavery? Admiral Zextar appeared outside their cell, his crystal armor reflecting the dim light. You are the captain of this vessel? I am, Chen said, standing straight despite her injuries. Good. You will tell us about your species. How many worlds do you control? What defenses do you have? We're explorers and traders, Chen replied. We build farms and hospitals, not armies. Zextar laughed, a sound like grinding stone. Perfect. My raiding fleets will harvest your worlds easily. Your people will make excellent slaves. Chen looked up at the towering alien commander. Something in her eyes made him step back slightly, though he didn't understand why. You have no idea what you've just awakened, she said quietly. Far across the galaxy, the emergency beacon continued its journey toward Earth, carrying news of humanity's first contact with alien intelligence. And buried deep within its encrypted data, ancient protocols began to stir, systems that had slept peacefully for centuries, waiting for the day when humanity would need to remember what they had once been capable of becoming. The emergency beacon from the Terran Wanderer traveled through space for 6 days before reaching Earth's outer defense network. Most distress signals were handled by local authorities or nearby ships. But this beacon was different. Hidden in its data stream was a code that hadn't been transmitted in over 300 years. Deep beneath the surface of Luna Base, Admiral Elena Vasquez was reviewing routine shipping reports when her computer suddenly locked down. The screen flashed red and a single word appeared: Lazarus. Vasquez stared at the screen. She had studied history, but she never thought she would see that word in her lifetime. Lazarus was a protocol from the old days, from the time when humanity had nearly destroyed itself in civil wars that spanned decades and cost billions of lives. Her hands shook as she entered her authorization codes. The computer unlocked, revealing data that made her blood run cold. A human civilian vessel had been attacked by aliens. The crew was dead or captured. And according to the ship's final transmission, the aliens were planning to attack more human colonies. Computer, activate Lazarus Protocol, she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Lazarus Protocol requires confirmation from 2 senior officers, the computer replied. Vasquez reached for her emergency communicator. There was only one other person on Luna Base with the right authorization codes. Fleet Admiral Zhang Wei was officially retired, spending his days in the base's botanical gardens. Unofficially, he was the keeper of humanity's greatest secret. She found him tending to roses in Greenhouse 7. He was a small elderly man with gentle hands and kind eyes. Most people saw him as a peaceful gardener. They had no idea what he had been during the resource wars. Elena, he said without looking up from his flowers, I felt the base systems changing. Lazarus? First contact, she said simply. They killed civilians. Zhang Wei's hand stopped moving. For a moment, he looked far older than his years. Then he straightened up and suddenly he wasn't a gardener anymore. He was Fleet Admiral Zhang Wei, the man who had ended the resource wars by making weapons so terrible that both sides chose peace rather than mutual destruction. How long since the attack? He asked. 6 days. Then they've had time to plan more attacks. Zhang Wei removed his gardening gloves and walked toward the greenhouse door. Come, we have work to do. They made their way to the deepest levels of Luna Base, past sections that most personnel didn't even know existed. Zhang Wei's handprint opened doors that hadn't been unsealed in decades. Finally, they reached a room filled with dark screens and silent computers. Computer, this is Fleet Admiral Zhang Wei. Confirmed Lazarus Protocol activation. Confirmed, the computer replied. Lazarus Protocol is now active. All dormant systems are coming online. Across the solar system, things that had slept for centuries began to wake up. In the asteroid belt, mining operations stopped their work and began converting their facilities into weapons factories. On Mars, underground bunkers opened to reveal ships that had never been officially built. Around Jupiter, automated systems started assembling something that had been designed but never deployed. Vasquez watched the status displays light up one by one. My God, Zhang, how much did we hide? Everything, he replied quietly. After the wars, we decided that humanity needed to spread across the galaxy as peacefully as possible. But we also decided that we would never be helpless again. Every colony ship carried construction templates for defensive systems. Every mining operation could be converted to military production. Every peaceful settlement had emergency protocols. Meanwhile, in Haelor space, Admiral Zextar was interrogating his prisoners. The 3 humans sat in their crystal cell, battered but unbroken. This puzzled him. Most species broke quickly under interrogation, becoming cooperative or at least fearful. These humans just watched him with calculating eyes. "Your homeworld," Zextar demanded. "Where is it?" "Earth," Captain Chen replied. "Third planet from a yellow star. You can't miss it. How many ships defend it? None that you would recognize as warships." This was true in a way. Earth's orbital platforms looked like communication satellites and weather stations. The defense fleet appeared to be composed of cargo haulers and research vessels. Any aggressive alien force would see a defenseless world full of soft targets. "Your colonies," Zextar continued. "How many people live on them?" "Millions," Webb answered. "Farmers, doctors, teachers, engineers. People who build things and help each other." Zextar smiled, showing crystal teeth. "Excellent. My raiding fleets will capture them easily. Your people will learn to serve the Empire." "You might find that more difficult than you expect," Tanaka said quietly. "Difficult?" Zextar laughed. "We are the Haelor Empire. We have conquered dozens of species across thousands of years. Your weak, peaceful race will be no challenge." But even as he spoke, reports were coming in from his raiding fleets. The first attacks on human colonies were going strangely. The settlements were being evacuated with military precision. Somehow the humans were coordinating across multiple star systems, sharing information about Haelor weapons and tactics. This was supposed to be impossible for a peaceful species. Back on Earth, Admiral Vasquez was coordinating humanity's awakening from Luna Base's command center. Ships that had been disguised as cargo haulers were revealing their true nature. Mining vessels were deploying weapons that had been built into their hull plating. Research stations were activating sensor arrays that could track ships across multiple star systems. "Status report," she called out. "All colonies are implementing Protocol 7, an officer replied. "Civilian populations are being moved to secure locations. Defense systems are powering up. And Admiral, we're getting volunteers." Lots of volunteers, this was expected. Humanity had spent 3 centuries learning to work together, to coordinate, to think as one species rather than separate nations. When the call went out that human civilians were under attack, the response was immediate and overwhelming. "What about the fleet?" Vasquez asked. Jiang Wei looked up from a tactical display. "The Soul's Hammer will be ready in 18 hours. The other dreadnoughts need more time, but they're coming online." The Soul's Hammer had been Jiang Wei's masterpiece during the Resource Wars. Officially, it had been scrapped after the peace treaties. Actually, it had been hidden in the asteroid belt, maintained by automated systems and upgraded continuously. It was humanity's ultimate weapon, and the galaxy was about to see what 3 centuries of peaceful technological development could produce when applied to warfare. In their cell, the 3 prisoners from the Terran Wanderer could see the confusion growing among their captors. Haelor officers were moving more quickly, their voices more urgent. Something was happening that they didn't understand. "They're starting to realize," Chen said softly to her companions. "We're not what they thought we were." "What are we?" Tanaka asked. Chen thought for a moment. "We're gardeners," she said finally. "But we're gardeners who remember what we had to do before we could afford to be peaceful." Across human space, the transformation continued. Humanity was waking up from its long, peaceful dream, and the galaxy was about to learn why they had chosen to sleep so lightly. Admiral Zextar stood in his command center aboard the Dominion's Fist, studying reports from his raiding fleets. What should have been simple raids on defenseless human colonies was turning into something far more complicated. "Admiral," his intelligence officer reported, "the 3rd raiding fleet has encountered resistance at the human agricultural world called New Harvest." "Resistance?" Zextar's crystal armor clicked as he turned. "What kind of resistance can farmers offer?" "That's the strange part, sir. The planet appeared completely defenseless when our ships arrived. No orbital platforms, no military vessels, just farming settlements and research stations. But when Fleet Commander Vexhan began landing troops, his ships started taking damage." Zextar examined the tactical display. New Harvest looked like a typical human colony. Rolling farmland, small cities, Research facilities studying new crops. Nothing that should pose a threat to Imperial warships. What kind of damage? That's what we don't understand. The humans seem to have weapons built into their farming equipment. Tractors that can shoot missiles. Grain silos that contain particle cannons. Even their irrigation systems have been weaponized. This was impossible. The Empire's intelligence had been watching human expansion for months. They were peaceful traders and farmers. They had no military industry, no weapon development programs, no signs of aggressive capability. Where are the human civilians? Sextar demanded. Gone, sir. Every settlement was evacuated before our ships arrived, but they left behind detailed sensor logs of our weapons and ship specifications. And sir, those logs are being transmitted to other human worlds. Sextar felt the first stirring of unease. A truly peaceful species would have panicked, would have surrendered, would have begged for mercy. Instead, the humans were fighting with coordination that suggested military training and sharing intelligence across multiple star systems. In his private chambers, he called up the interrogation records from the captured human crew. Captain Chen had said something during questioning. You've seen humanity at peace. We were gardeners, builders, healers. You've never seen us at war. At the time, he had dismissed it as empty bravado. Now he wondered if he had missed something important. Meanwhile, deep in human space, Fleet Admiral Zhang Wei stood on the bridge of the Soul's Hammer. The ship was magnificent and terrible, a work of engineering that combined 3 centuries of peaceful technological advancement with weapons designed during humanity's darkest period. Admiral, all systems are operational, reported his tactical officer. We're receiving coordination data from every human world. Zhang Wei nodded. This was how humanity fought when they had to fight. Not as separate nations or competing corporations, but as a single species with a shared purpose. Every farmer, every scientist, every merchant was now part of a vast intelligence network that tracked enemy movements and shared tactical information instantly. What's our status on the other dreadnoughts? He asked. Terra's Wrath will be ready in 6 hours. Luna's shield is still undergoing final system checks. The carrier groups are forming up behind the asteroid belt. The carrier groups were Zhang Wei's greatest innovation. During the resource wars, he had realized that the most dangerous weapon wasn't a big ship with powerful guns. It was coordination. The ability to put thousands of smaller vessels in exactly the right place at exactly the right time, all working together with perfect information sharing. Back in Haelor space, Admiral Zextar was receiving more disturbing reports. His 4th raiding fleet had found a human research station that appeared to be studying crop diseases. When they boarded it, the station's computer systems had infected their ships with viruses that turned their own weapons against them. How is this possible? He demanded of his intelligence staff. Our computers are protected by military-grade encryption. Sir, the humans seem to understand our technology better than we do. His chief analyst replied nervously. They've been studying our ship since the first contact. Every battle gives them more information, and they adapt faster than our tactical doctrine can respond to. The truth was becoming clear, though Zextar didn't want to admit it. Humanity's peaceful expansion had been a carefully orchestrated strategy. They had spread across dozens of systems, established deep industrial bases, and built a civilization that could instantly convert from peaceful production to total war. Every human colony had hidden manufacturing facilities that could produce weapons and ships. Every mining operation could be converted to military production within hours. Every research station was actually a military intelligence post sharing information across the galaxy. Captain Chen, still imprisoned in her crystal cell, could see the growing panic among her captors. Haelor officers moved through the corridors with increasing urgency. Status reports were becoming more frequent and more alarming. They're starting to understand, she said to Webb and Tanaka. Understand what? Tanaka asked. That we weren't defenseless. We were sleeping. Webb looked up from where he had been working on something with components from his tool belt. Captain, I've managed to tap into their communication system. Want to hear what they're saying? Chen nodded. Webb activated his improvised device and suddenly they could hear Haelor military communications. The language was harsh, but the translation software in Webb's tool could make sense of it. Fleet 7 reports total loss of communication with advanced scouts. Fleet 3 is requesting immediate reinforcement. Human forces are using weapons we've never encountered. Intelligence reports that human cargo vessels are revealing hidden weapon systems. Chen smiled grimly. They attacked a merchant ship and woke up an entire civilization that spent 3 centuries learning to work together. The reports continued. Human mining ships were deploying swarms of automated fighters. Human research vessels were using gravity weapons that could crush Imperial ships like tin cans. Human cargo haulers were coordinating attacks with precision that made Imperial fleet tactics look clumsy and outdated. "Admiral," Webb said, "listen to this one. Emperor's Command, this is Fleet Commander Halrak. The humans are not fighting like any species we have encountered. They do not seek individual glory or territorial conquest. They fight as if they are a single organism with billions of parts. Request immediate strategic reassessment." Chen leaned back against the crystal wall. "That's because we are a single organism in a way. We spent 3 centuries learning to cooperate instead of compete. We shared knowledge instead of hoarding it. We built civilization instead of empires, and now?" Tanaka asked. "Now they've given us a reason to remember what we're capable of when we work together with a single purpose." Outside their cell, they could hear Admiral Zextar shouting orders to his staff. The confident, arrogant commander who had attacked the Terran Wanderer was beginning to realize that he had not encountered a weak, peaceful species ripe for conquest. He had awakened something that the galaxy had never seen before, a civilization that chose peace not from weakness, but from strength. A species that had learned to fight so well that they had voluntarily given up fighting to build something better. But when their children were threatened, they remembered exactly how to be the most dangerous force in the galaxy while remaining, fundamentally, the species that valued life and chose cooperation over domination. The Haelor Empire was about to learn the difference between a species that couldn't fight and a species that chose not to fight until they had to. The first major battle between humans and the Haelor Empire took place at Proxima Station, a human trading post near the edge of explored space. Admiral Zextar himself led the attack, commanding 5 Imperial dreadnoughts and expecting an easy victory over what appeared to be a lightly defended civilian facility. He was about to learn that appearances could be deadly. "Imperial fleet approaching Proxima Station," reported the station commander to Fleet Admiral Jiang Wei aboard the Soul's Hammer. "They have us outnumbered 5-1. "Understood," Jiang Wei replied calmly. "Begin Protocol 12. What Admiral Zextar saw on his tactical screens looked like a standard colonial defense. A few patrol ships, some armed cargo vessels, and the space station itself. What he didn't see was the network of sensor buoys that had been tracking his fleet for 3 days. The hidden missile platforms disguised as communication satellites, and the fact that every human ship in the system was linked into a single tactical network that thought and reacted faster than any military computer the Empire had ever built. "Begin the attack," Zextar ordered. "Destroy the station and capture any survivors for interrogation." The Imperial ships opened fire with their massive energy weapons, the same tactics that had conquered dozens of species over centuries of expansion. The human ships scattered, appearing to flee in panic, but they weren't fleeing. They were positioning. "Now," Jiang Wei said quietly. Suddenly, Zextar's fleet was surrounded. Ships that had appeared to be fleeing were actually moving into attack positions with precision that seemed impossible. The harmless cargo vessels revealed weapons that hit with devastating accuracy. The space station itself opened up with defensive systems that had been hidden within its civilian sections. But the worst part wasn't the weapons. It was the coordination. The human ships moved like schools of fish, each one instantly aware of what all the others were doing. When one ship was damaged, the others immediately adjusted their positions to protect it. When the Imperial ships tried to concentrate fire on a single target, the humans shifted their formation to spread the damage. "Impossible," Zextar muttered, watching his tactical display. "No species can coordinate like this." His fleet was being torn apart by an enemy that seemed to anticipate every move. When he tried to retreat, the humans were already in position to cut off his escape routes. When he tried to press the attack, they melted away like smoke and struck from unexpected directions. "Admiral," his tactical officer called out. "We're losing the Imperial might. Their weapons are adapting to our shields." This was something the Empire had never encountered. Most species developed a few types of weapons and stuck with them. The humans seemed to have dozens of different weapon types, and they switched between them constantly. always using whatever was most effective against Imperial defenses at any given moment. "Sir, the humans are broadcasting on all frequencies," his communications officer reported. "Put it on screen." Fleet Admiral Zhang Wei appeared on the display. He was a small, elderly man who looked like he should be teaching at a university, rather than commanding warships. His voice was calm and gentle, which somehow made him more frightening than any screaming warlord. "Admiral Zextar, I am Fleet Admiral Zhang Wei of the Human Commonwealth. You have attacked our civilian vessels and murdered our people. You have one opportunity to surrender. If you continue this attack, you will be destroyed." Zextar laughed, though it sounded forced even to his own ears. "You dare threaten the Haelor Empire? We have conquered species across half the galaxy." "Yes," Zhang Wei replied quietly. "We know. We've been monitoring your empire's activities for some time. That's why we prepared for this day." "Prepared?" Zextar's laugh died. "You were a peaceful species. You had no military. We had no military because we chose not to have one. There's a difference." Zhang Wei's image leaned forward slightly. "Admiral, you've seen humanity at peace. We were farmers, scientists, doctors, teachers. We built things and helped each other. But before we learned to be peaceful, we learned something else." "What?" "We learned how to fight so well that we nearly destroyed ourselves. The resource wars lasted 40 years and killed 3 billion people. We developed weapons so terrible that both sides chose peace rather than mutual extinction. Then we decided to hide those weapons and become the kind of species that builds gardens instead of graves." Zextar stared at the screen. Around his fleet, more human ships were appearing. Not just warships, but cargo vessels that revealed hidden weapon systems, mining ships that deployed swarms of automated fighters, even medical frigates that turned out to carry devastating electronic warfare equipment. "But when someone attacks our children," Zhang Wei continued, "we remember what we were before we chose to be gardeners." The battle resumed, but now Zextar understood what he was really fighting. This wasn't a recently militarized peaceful species. This was a species that had perfected warfare so completely that they had voluntarily given it up, only to reclaim that knowledge when their families were threatened. The human ships fought with a beauty that was terrifying to watch. They moved in perfect formation, sharing information instantly, adapting their tactics in real time. When one ship was damaged, others immediately moved to assist. When the Imperial ships tried new tactics, the humans had already anticipated them and prepared countermeasures. "Sir, we need to retreat," his tactical officer pleaded. "We've lost 3 ships and the others are badly damaged." But there was nowhere to retreat to. The humans had surrounded his fleet completely, and they were closing in with methodical precision. "Admiral Zextar," Zhang Wei's voice came over the communications again. "Last chance. Surrender now and your crews will be treated according to the standards of civilized warfare." "And if we refuse?" Zextar asked. "Then you'll discover why we spent 3 centuries learning to be peaceful. It's much more difficult than learning to be violent." Zextar looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at their tactical displays in shock. The human fleet wasn't just winning. They were winning while taking minimal casualties, capturing damaged Imperial ships instead of destroying them, and somehow managing to make it look easy. "We surrender," he said finally. "Wise choice," Zhang Wei replied. "Shut down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Your crews will be treated well, but you will be held accountable for the murder of civilians." As Imperial ships powered down their weapons, Zextar realized the full scope of his mistake. He hadn't just attacked a peaceful species. He had attacked a species that was so good at warfare that they had to voluntarily give it up to avoid destroying themselves. And in attacking their civilians, he had given them permission to remember what they had once been capable of. The Haelor Empire was about to discover that there was something far more dangerous than a species that loved war, a species that was extremely good at war but chose peace instead, until someone threatened their children. The final battle took place above Haelor Prime, the crystal homeworld of the Empire. Admiral Zextar had been captured at Proxima Station, but the Imperial Senate had refused to surrender. They activated their ultimate weapon, a massive space station called the World Cracker, capable of destroying entire planets. Fleet Admiral Zhang Wei stood on the bridge of the Soul's Hammer, surrounded by the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. But as he looked at the tactical display, he wasn't thinking about weapons or military strategy. He was thinking about the children on the Haelor homeworld below. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "the World Cracker is powering up. They're targeting the human colony at New Geneva. Zhang Wei nodded. The Haelors were making one final desperate play, threatening to destroy a human world if the Commonwealth fleet didn't retreat. It was exactly what he had expected them to do. Open a channel to the Haelor Senate, he ordered. The crystal-faced leaders of the Empire appeared on the screen, their expressions showing desperate defiance. Senate Leader Kexnel spoke first. Human fleet, you will withdraw immediately or we will destroy your colony world. We have the power to crack planets. Your people will die by the billions. Zhang Wei looked at them with the same gentle expression he had worn while tending his roses. Senate Leader Kexnel, I have a question for you. Do you know why we call ourselves the Human Commonwealth? What? Kexnel seemed confused by the question. Commonwealth. It means we share the wealth. We share the responsibility, we share the future. Every decision we make together. Every human world agreed to the risk when we decided to rescue our people from your empire. Then you doom your own species. Kexnel replied. We will destroy world after world until you submit. No, Zhang Wei said quietly. You won't. He gestured to his tactical officer who activated a display showing the Haelor homeworld. But the planet wasn't surrounded by human warships. Instead, thousands of small vessels orbited the crystal world, each one broadcasting the same message. What are those ships? Kexnel demanded. Hospital ships, Zhang Wei replied. Medical research vessels. Emergency relief transports. Every human world sent them when they learned about the civilians on your planet. The Senate leader's crystal face showed confusion. What are you talking about? We know about your slave world, Senate leader. We know about the dozens of species your empire has conquered over the centuries. And we know that most of the population on your homeworld consists of those enslaved peoples, not Haelor citizens. Zhang Wei's image leaned forward. We're not here to destroy your world. We're here to liberate it. On the surface of Haelor Prime, something unprecedented was happening. Human medical teams were landing in the slave districts offering food, medical care, and something that hadn't been seen on the crystal world in centuries. Freedom. Captain Sarah Chen, recently rescued from imperial captivity, led one of the relief teams. She walked through neighborhoods where dozens of species lived in fear and poverty, and offered them a choice. We're not here to conquer, she told the gathering crowds through universal translators. We're not here to replace your masters with new ones. We're here to give you what everyone deserves, the right to choose your own future. The response was overwhelming. Species that had been enslaved for generations looked up at the sky and saw human ships, but instead of weapons of war, they saw vessels of hope. Back in orbit, Senate Leader Kexnel watched his empire crumbling, not from military defeat, but from something far more devastating, liberation. The slave populations that formed the foundation of Haelor society were simply walking away. This is impossible, he said. They are property of the empire. They cannot choose to leave. Everyone can choose, Zhang Wei replied. That's what makes them people instead of property. The World Cracker, powered down as its crew, mostly enslaved aliens from conquered worlds, shut down the systems and asked for passage to the human relief ships. The Haelor military found themselves unable to fight when their own support staff refused to work. But the humans offered something even to the Haelors themselves. A chance to build something better. Senate leader, Zhang Wei continued, your people don't have to be the villains in this story. You can choose to become something else. We're offering you the chance to transform your empire into a republic, your conquered territories into free worlds, your slave castes into citizens. And if we refuse? Zhang Wei smiled sadly. Then you'll discover that we're very good at fighting, but we're even better at making war irrelevant. Your empire is already over. The question is what you want to build in its place. Over the following months, the transformation was remarkable. The Haelor Empire became the Haelor Republic, with former Senate leader Kexnel serving as an elected president rather than an imperial ruler. The slave worlds became free systems, with most choosing to join the growing Galactic Cooperation Council. Captain Chen found herself commanding a new type of vessel, a diplomatic ship that traveled between worlds, helping former enemies learn to work together. Engineer Webb designed new technologies that turned weapons factories into medical research centers. Navigator Tanaka mapped peaceful trade routes between species that had been enemies for centuries. But the most important change was in how the galaxy thought about conflict itself. We learned something important. Chen explained to a gathering of species representatives. Peace isn't the absence of conflict. Peace is what happens when you're so good at resolving conflicts that war becomes unnecessary. The humans had shown the galaxy something new, a species that could fight with devastating effectiveness, but chose to build instead. They had demonstrated that the ultimate victory wasn't defeating your enemies, but turning them into friends. Fleet Admiral Zhang Wei returned to his gardens on Luna Base, but now those gardens were visited by beings from across the galaxy. Former Haelor warriors learned to tend crystal flowers. Liberated slaves from dozens of species planted seeds from their homeworlds. Children from every known sentient race played together among the roses. On the wall of Luna Base's Memorial Hall, beneath the names of every human lost in the Haelor War, a simple message was inscribed in the languages of every known species. They woke the gardeners. The galaxy bloomed. The inscription was written by Captain Chen, but the idea came from something Admiral Zextar had said during his war crimes trial. When asked if he regretted attacking the Terran Wanderer, he had replied, "I regret attacking civilians, but I don't regret learning what humanity truly is. They could have destroyed us. Instead, they taught us how to be better than we were. That's not victory. That's something greater." The galaxy had learned that the most dangerous species wasn't the one that was best at war. It was the one that was so good at war that they chose peace instead, and who could teach others to make the same choice. The long peace that followed wasn't maintained by fear or force. It was maintained by the knowledge that somewhere in the galaxy, tending their gardens and helping their neighbors, were the people who had proven that strength was best measured not by what you could destroy, but by what you could build. And if anyone ever threatened the innocent again, those same gardeners would remember once more how to make war irrelevant.